I'm going to feel the Bernie.
Wow, that was a bad joke. You need to be flown off into space and never return.
But babe, haven't you learned this already since you've been in this relationship with me? That's.
I mean, at this point, I guess I should have, but you know what? It's like you never cease to amaze me.
No. Okay, so Bernie is one of the candidates from the presidential election. No. Okay, Bernie is. Okay, Bernie.
Or maybe it's maybe it's like a fusion, a Dragon Ball Z fusion of Bert and Ernie. That's exactly what it is. Bernie.
Yeah, isn't that Sesame Street, not Dragon Ball?
I don't know.
Yeah, our brains are broken at this point, so we. Okay, so anyway, Bernie. The idea is that it fits into the main WALL-E story. So, I mean, it's we're at the point where they're trying to get rid of the plant, and so they blast the plant off into space, and so then WALL-E and Eva obviously go after it, and but then in the whole madness of doing that, they break one of the pilot lights on the ship. So this wakes up Bernie, who has to basically replace the pilot light, and so he replaces it once and it flies off into space, and then he has to go off and do it again, and he's distracted by something, and then he ends up slicing through it, and then he has to replace it another time, but then realizes that everyone's left the ship, and then when he finally does replace it, he realizes that he gets basically crushed by a floating open lid on one of the escape pods, and then he just basically faints and realizes that he's never going to replace that light on that ship, but it's all not worth anything anyway because the humans are back on the planet. So
right. So yeah, this is basically kind of like a scene where it's going alongside with the movie, very similar to how we were talking about how in Jack Attack we saw about, okay, so we know about what happened with the Incredibles. We know about what happened to Mr. Incredible, Mrs. Incredible. We know what happened to Dash and Violet and, trying to stop Syndrome. So what about Jack? What was he going through right before Syndrome decided to take him under his wing, and then he decided to go ballistic with his powers? So we knew about the phone messages that, Elastigirl was listening to so she can find out how Jack and the babysitter were doing. And we just heard the messages, calm at first, and then she's going incredibly ballistic, and then she starts calming down, saying like, oh, thank you for sending in the new babysitter. And like, what happened between all that? So now we know what happened between all of that. So we basically we have the sitter who's watching over Jack, and everything is fine. And then his powers start forming in. And then things just go from bad to worse. We see Syndrome coming in, which is pretty funny with that scene in which when he's saying, I'm here for the baby. And then she's like, oh, yes, the new sitter's here. What does the S stand for? It's like, oh, it stands for sitter. I tried putting in babysitter, but then the initials would have been BS, and that wouldn't have been good. So I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously we covered that in a previous PixMinis, but I mean, going back to Bernie. So I mean,
but here's the thing: it's like with Bernie. First of all, we were never introduced to this character. He was just, he could have been introduced maybe alongside with WALL-E, and he's introduced to all the other robots when he was brought in.
He sort of was introduced. He was like a throwaway gag, basically, in the main movie. But one thing I really want to stress out on this is that we talked about Jack Attack before, but dare I say, I think Jack Attack is more original than Bernie is, because in the Bernie shot, we're constantly flipping back to like what's going on in the movie, and so it's like it doesn't really. While it does, if anything, it's kind of like borrowing from like maybe Lion King and one and a half. Like saying like, oh, this is telling you from Bernie's perspective. So that's one thing I kind of take away from it. But in regards to the Bernie short, I would argue once again that it's not the most original, I don't think, of that. And Bernie was already a character kind of like in the main movie already, just not kind of like put in the forefront. So.
And we'll be talking about something like this a little later on in PixMix, where they will be featuring a side character, and we get to know more about him right before the main story goes through. And that one, even though that it was a little bit cuter, it did actually fit into the story. Jack fits into the story of their respected films. Bernie doesn't. You could just remove that part, and it's like, oh, here's a nice little addition, but you could just remove it, and you won't really miss anything. It doesn't add anything to the film.
It doesn't really, no. So, in regards to how it sounds, in regards to how it is, it's just WALL-E. You know, like there's nothing much unique about it either. Really, when
Yeah, I mean, don't get us wrong. I mean, it is a pretty nice short, especially with, Bernie trying to fix the light pole and, going back and forth and basically saying, well, not saying, but basically kind of trying to get each time that a pole would break or that he would accidentally cut it or something like that, or the time that he was like locked in and he tried to go in through the garbage chute, which is the scene in which when Eva saved Wally and then he couldn't go through. So yeah, I mean it's fine, but I mean when compared to Jack Jack Attack and then a short that we'll be talking about a little later, yeah, I would say that out of the ones that we've seen when it comes to that kind of segment of shorts, it's probably the weakest one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, everybody. Well, we're gonna have our head in the clouds for the next one, so we'll see you then.
Catch you later.